Yes, now we're good.
Amazing. So today we are here with the amazing Rosanna Gill, and she's one of the amazing, I think it's 20 speakers now that are going to be speaking
Mm-hmm.
at the Design to Thrive Leadership Summit, which we're both super excited about. Well, at least I know I am. I think you are too. Are you?
Oh, very much so. Very much
I'm
so.
very excited. Some of the roster and the topics are just absolutely amazing, and I'm really, really excited to listen to all of the talks as they start coming out. The summit starts this Sunday, and you can register for free, and you can also sign up for the VIP registration, which is going to have a bunch of amazing bonuses and freebies and so many awesome things that I think are really good for anybody who's looking to lead and just create awesome workspaces and places for people to grow and be
Mm-hmm.
amazing at what they do. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm gonna let Rosanna introduce herself because she has an amazing background, and her topic at the summit is curiosity as a business superpower, which is amazing. It's an amazing topic and something that I'm super passionate about. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and what are you looking forward to with the summit coming up?
Well, thank you. Those were very kind words. I'm just excited to be in the summit. I'm so excited to share. So, the curiosity as a business superpower comes from years of learning how to become good in sales from making so many mistakes and thinking I had to do it the way I saw a lot of predominantly males do it, which was like very focused on saying the right things and having the perfect pitch. And just it was a very masculine, like grinded out hustle approach. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but it wasn't the best for me. And when I leaned into who I am naturally, which is a very curious person with lots and lots of questions, it completely transformed my relationship with sales, my results, everything, even my enjoyment of my job. Because I went from being terrified to walk through the door and make a cold call. Like I remember crying in my car because I was so afraid to go in and get rejected yet again, because that's all that was happening at that point. And now at my current company, I'm a vice president of partnership development. And if you had asked me 10 years ago if I ever saw myself becoming any leader in anything related to partnership development or sales, I would think you're crazy. And I just never could have seen that for myself. But it came from leaning into who I am and my natural talents and embracing those and learning how to use them to my advantage, as opposed to trying to make myself into somebody else. So you look like
You
about
know, like we have so many, we had things that we're planning on talking about, but so much of what you've said has just like, inspired so many questions. So much of one of the reasons why we're doing this is because we wanted to explore some of the overlaps between both of our areas of expertise, and which I find super awesome. Like, isn't it awesome to be able to just talk with people who are just great?
it's so
So
nice.
yeah, and some of the overlap in what you were just saying is so much of what I teach my clients, and what I'm sure you're teaching your clients, is like being yourself really is your greatest superpower. It sounds so cliche. It sounds so like, oh yeah, you're gonna see. It's so, like something you see on a T-shirt at Target. But honestly, like
I would buy that shirt.
but honestly, it's worth your money. Like, because nobody else can be you.
Right.
Nobody else looks like you. Nobody else talks like you. Nobody else has the ideas that you do. And I think it's only when you kind of trick yourself that you're just ordinary like everyone else is when you kind of restrict yourself, cut yourself off at the legs, and don't allow yourself to shine.
Yes.
So it's super awesome. I'm super curious about, what you just said a little bit about how when you started being yourself, that's when you were able to kind of scale and grow and get this amazing position that you have now. I'm curious for you to tell me a little bit about that process, and what do you remember about that time when you were growing like that? Or was it just kind of like you woke up one day and said, wow, it was because I was curious that I am where I am now? Like,
Well, the
what
realization what kind of came much after the fact, but the the impetus, I would say, to me starting that was I luckily had a mentor, my manager at the time, who was said, if you're having such a hard time with sales, then maybe you should start listening to books on tape. And books on tape, because at the time I had a 1996 car that was 10 years old. And that's what I had to do is a tape record. Like it did not have CD player. It only had tape recorder. And so all this time I was spending in my car, I was listening to all these sales books. And the first one I listened to that was just like mind blowing to me was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I mean,
Classic.
it was just mind because the whole tenet of that is if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you need and want as well. And it's not like this is the perfect sales tactic to use. It's no, show up, help people, and give value. Well, at that point, I was 22 years old in a sales position, no less for a life insurance company. Well, at 22 years old, I'd never lost anybody. I didn't know anything about life insurance personally. I just knew what I'd learned in my course and that it seemed like it made sense. So I couldn't go in there and saying, well, this is what I think you should do, or this is my professional advice. So I instead leaned into what I did have lots of, which was lots of questions. And it kind of happened by accident where I went in, I was cold calling on a client or a potential client, and it was like mid afternoon. And I was thinking he was going to say, no, I don't have time, like a lot of them did, and just kind of brushed me off. And he looks at whatever he was doing on his computer and he's like, yeah, sure, come on, sell me what you're going to sell me. And I was like, oh no, I'm not ready to pitch. I'm not, nobody ever invites me in. I don't know what to do. This is what I've been planning for and I don't know what to do. So I just kept asking him questions because I was too nervous to make my presentation. But the great news is after like 30, 40 minutes of just asking like whatever question came to mind, like, okay, well, tell me about your organization. Okay, well, what are you doing? And then letting it flow. Like instead of every single question trying to figure out a way to pitch, I just asked another question. And by the end of it, I hadn't said anything about what I did, but I had learned some really great information about him that let me know that he actually was a really great candidate. So without by accident, I basically qualified him as a prospect. Didn't know that's what I was doing, but I did it. And then we get to the end and he kind of sheepishly looks at me and he's like, I gotta be honest, I only invited you in because I have this report I'm supposed to do it and I don't feel like doing it. So I was just procrastinating. But I kind of feel bad I just talked your ear off for the last 45 minutes. So why don't we schedule something and you come back and you can actually tell me what it is that you do? And I said, okay.
Wow. Yeah. You're like, okay, I'll come back.
And then it was great because I got to take all the information that he'd given me, practice it, put it into my presentation. And when I came back to present him, it wasn't the presentation I would have done if I tried to do it off the fly the first day I met him. It was something that was completely tailored to what I knew he needed and what I knew would actually help him. So it didn't feel like for either of us that I was selling him. It was, hey, this is all the information you gave me. This is how it could fit in with what we offer. Let's see if it works. And it did.
So it's like that curiosity created the servant heart for you. You really were just there to learn and to serve, and that was your one goal, your one place that you were coming from in that situation, and that's what created that whole scenario for you to begin with.
Yeah. Completely by accident, but I feel like some of the best things happen by accident.
Yeah, definitely. That is so wow. Like that's an incredible story. I think a lot of people watching this can relate to probably like a time where things didn't go as they expected just because they showed up as themselves, which is I always tell people like that really is your superpower, you know? So yeah. Well, anyways, let's move on to some of the topics that we have here because we're already a couple minutes in and I'm really excited to talk with you about them. So one of the things that we were talking about before we got on this call and this interview was we wanted to talk a little bit about that again the overlaps in our industries and one of the topics that we came up with was how definitely something that people really struggle with that we probably get clients coming to us about or even at our jobs or our workplaces is you know selling yourself and feeling like you're skilled enough and have acquired the skills to be able to sell yourself enough. So I'm wondering if you, with your background in sales, can talk to us a little bit more. We can just have a chat about that aspect of things, what it is like to, what does it even mean to actually sell yourself
Mhm.
and feel like you have the skills to do that.
Sometimes, and I'll be completely honest, when I was trying to, when I knew I wanted to do something different, right? I knew I wanted to move from, I was with the same company for over 10 years, almost 12. And I knew I needed to like dust off the resume, kind of put feelers out. I actually went to a really good friend of mine who knew me. She is in a similar, she's also in public relations and marketing. And I actually went to her and I said, "Can you tell me what you think is the best parts of me? Like, what do you know about me?" Because sometimes we look at ourselves and it's really easy for us to discount the things that we're really good at because we're just like, "Oh, everybody's good at that." It's like, no, 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 that's your thing. Don't discount your own talents. So sometimes it's really good to ask the people in your inner circle that what they think, because they're going to give you perspective on things that you might completely like leave off of the resume. And I will
Absolutely.
say it was such a like
Guilty.
eye-opening yeah, right?
Yep, you've done that. Mhm.
And now I will say the reason I said inner circle though is because you need to go to somebody you value and who's the type of friend that builds you up. Don't go to the negative Nancy's who, you mentioned something new you might want to do and they're like, "Oh, why would you want to do that?" Everybody has that, whether it's somebody in their family or a friend. That's not the person you go to, okay? This is the friend who's in a similar area. Maybe it's even somebody that you're in this like in the same major with you if you're still in college or in school. Go to somebody in your inner circle though that you trust who's actually going to give you objective feedback about yourself.
Yeah, I think probably when people listen to this, if you're, maybe not someone who has, I don't want to say come from a coaching background, but has maybe not listened to, some personal development books, like it sounds like such a weird concept to go to someone and ask them, what's great about me?
Mhm.
But what do you have to say to, so I'll let you answer. What do you have to say to people who maybe are thinking like, hell no, I'm not going to do that. Just have someone talk amazing. Like, who does that? What conceited person goes up to someone and says like, hey, tell me good things about me?
Well, you know what? To somebody who says that, I'm going to say, well, if you're too afraid to ask somebody that loves you what's so amazing about you, how on earth do you plan on selling yourself to an employer? Because it's the exact same thing. And I would rather hear that from somebody I love who's not going to judge me than going up to a prospective employer and saying, "These are all the things I think are pretty good about myself." No. And inevitably when you have that conversation you're going to think of other things. And here's the thing, don't discount things that are not less necessarily business skills. One of my biggest, like, I don't know, let's say superpowers, or one of my best most marketable skills, if you want to call it that, is my enthusiasm. And the only reason I figured that out is
Yes,
because
you are so enthusiastic. I love it about you.
I'm like a chihuahua. I am the most easily excited about everything. And there's not much that doesn't excite me. And you might think, and I know I've noticed like when I go to like, big meetings and stuff that there's some people that doesn't resonate with. But you know why employers like it? Because they're not drawn to the negative ones. They're drawn to the people who are going to up the energy of that meeting, who when it's like 2 o'clock, everybody's had lunch and they're about to fall asleep. They're going to look to you, the Energizer Bunny, to be the one that's like actually responding when they're talking. And it makes a huge difference. And I know I found it out again by accident once. I was at this big conference and we were all in small groups and we had to present something, and a really good friend of mine who was also a coworker was in another group. She is an amazing artist. Like she created this thing. She basically within 15 minutes drew a caricature of Uncle Sam pointing, and like they created this big thing about it was beautiful. I'm a pretty good artist, but not that good. Like I'm very mediocre. So I drew something for my team as well, but it was not on her level. The difference is it wasn't. I mean, I know my strengths, and I'm not putting art on my resume. Enthusiasm, yes. Art, no. But what happened was when it came time for our teams to present out these things that we had created, I chose my team. Nobody really wanted to talk. Well, I'm perfectly happy talking, obviously. And I chose to present my own art. And I said, this is what we did. And I went and I did all my energy, right? My colleague, who is very shy, did not present her piece. Somebody else did, who was very low energy. Our team won. And our team did not have the better product at
No,
all.
I always say somebody else is out there doing exactly what you want to do simply because you didn't believe in yourself.
Yes.
Simply put, the amount of people like and exposure that I've had to so many teachers and people who are doing even what I'm doing or what you're doing or what anybody else is doing, like art, theater, whatever, you name it, like there's always somebody who's doing it and making it simply because the person who's actually capable and amazing at it doesn't believe in themselves to
Oh
go out
yeah.
there and do it.
And my friend even came up to me after my coworker, and she was like, "Oh, yours was so good." And I was like, "You better shut up, because you know darn well yours was prettier than mine. Like you know it was. We both do, but sales is a transference of feeling. And if you go into an interview and you're wah wah wah, oh yeah, this is what I bring to the table. Like, why would they remember you? But if you go in there energetic and enthusiastic about the role and what you could learn in it, and notice I said learn, it doesn't mean that you have to know everything. If you just show up enthusiastic about the opportunity to learn and to grow within it, you're going to get so much further than the person who goes in like Eeyore.
And I think I want to throw in a little differentiator. I think a lot of people will see us like we're clearly extroverted women. A lot of people who are maybe not as extroverted are probably looking at this and thinking like, well, I'm not that enthusiastic person. And what I have to say to that from my experience with career coaching, especially with the interview portion of doing things like this, is it doesn't matter if your personality is not like this. We're talking about enthusiasm for the
Yes.
work that you're doing. And what's going to happen is if you go into a workplace that is looking for that extroverted enthusiastic person, then you're just not the right fit for them. But that doesn't mean that you aren't enthusiastic and you have to now be somebody else. That just means they're looking for that and that's the match for them. But your kind of enthusiasm, however that shows up for you, isn't necessarily wrong in any way,
Mhm.
shape, or form. So I think most importantly is just that authenticity factor. And
Yes.
don't go after positions, jobs, opportunities that don't personally resonate with you because you're just not going to be a match for that and it's going to show throughout the entire process. I mean, yesterday I posted like a whole reel about there's like this positive psychology model about pathways to meaningful work and one of them is resonance, I believe. Yeah, I think one of them is resonance on there. And that's because you really have to resonate with whatever you're engaging and spending your time in, whether that is a little interview, going in to talk with somebody, whatever you're doing to sell yourself, whatever you're doing to engage with to make whatever you're trying to make happen. It's so important to have that resonance factor, because you really have to show up authentically and as yourself and just not take it so personal when the opportunity maybe wasn't meant for you because they were simply looking for something else, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, and just really quickly, I wanted to also add before we move on to another topic that is we wanted to talk about that has to do with this is we wanted to talk about skill acquisition, but I don't think we'll have loads of time to go into it. But something that I think I wanted to add about that is, you and I were talking about how people often feel that maybe they're just not qualified or skilled enough. And you were just talking about being a 22-year-old. For you, like your way of acquiring new skills was being genuinely curious. And maybe that's not everyone's superpower. So there's other outlets that we talked about. I
Mhm.
think I mentioned like I've had students and people that I've mentored and worked with go and take like iTunes U free Ivy League courses that are out there, and so many other there's so many platforms that really are out there for people to gain valuable skill sets and for either very low price or just for free, like completely for free. So I don't know if you have anything else to add about that, because I think a lot of people that maybe are watching this and are like, yeah, but I just genuinely don't feel that I'm yet ready or good enough for this. You told me a story that was an amazing story about how one of the biggest reasons why you got into an interview or you got a job or something like that, I can't remember, was
My
because you
current
had
role.
on your resume that you did a course by yourself. And that really stood out to people. And so that's a great use of your time. If you're kind of in this limbo that you're like, but I'm not yet good enough, but I'm still looking and I still want this and I still want to get this opportunity or I still want to do this thing, a great intermittent thing for you to be spending your time on now is skill acquisition.
Oh,
So I don't know if you have anything to say about that or add to that before
oh,
we move on to, I wanted to talk a little bit about confidence and mindset afterwards. So
okay. I'll be quick, but I will say I want to plug HubSpot because when the pandemic hit and I knew I was like, okay, I want to do something different, but I'm not entirely sure the direction. I went on there. They have all kinds of courses. And here's the thing, my degree is public relations and journalism. But for the last 12 years, I had done pretty much all outside sales. So even though that was my degree, as far as actual public relations, I was pretty rusty. And I knew I needed to really look at, okay, I need to brush up on now. Like when I was in college, digital marketing was not a big, like that wasn't a big part of our curriculum. But now, of course it is. So I thought, okay, let me go up there. So I took a course, one of their free courses on digital advertising. I took one on content marketing and it just lit me up. I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting. It makes so much sense to me. I love this. And that what was also great about that was it let me know I was like, oh, I want to do something where I get to do this. And the interesting thing was, I actually went to my boss, my employer at the time with the digital advertising and said, hey, this is a great way we could get a return on our investments and blah, 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 blah. And they were like, oh, yeah. No, not really. That's not our thing. And I was like, interesting. So fast forward to when I'm in interviews with my current boss, he mentions they have a subscription through HubSpot, but they didn't have somebody to run the content marketing. And I thought, huh, well, isn't it convenient that I did that? And he was like, oh, your employer. And I said, no, I did that just in the evenings because I was interested in it. And he just lit up like, this is great because no current or future potential employer is going to have an issue with the fact that you take it upon yourself to get extra
keep
skills.
learning. Yeah, to keep
Yes.
learning. Yeah, and I think if you can prove that you're somebody who's consistently curious and looking to add value, then you're just naturally going to attract better opportunities. And forget attraction, you're actually going to land and actually book better opportunities and situations, whether that be at work or, in my case, people looking to get hired or, advance in their careers. So yeah, I think that is such a massive portion that people forget about. Like, I got my master's in coaching psychology and positive psychology not too long ago, literally in December, but I've brushed up on so many things since then. And, like I know for a fact that that is something that employers are looking for, especially now more than ever in the age of digital information. Like there's just like no excuse for not gaining better skills and improving on things. So let's quickly move on to did you have anything else to say on that
No,
topic?
no, I definitely want us to talk about confidence because I think that's so important.
Yeah, let's talk about confidence because that's a big one. And I think, oh gosh, there's so many things that are like this, and in at least in my world of things, where when you say confidence, people are like, well, duh, but like it's not a well, duh subject, because if it were, then everyone would just already be in a better place right now than maybe they are. Like all of us, myself, yourself, like everyone included. So I don't think confidence is like a well duh subject.
Mm-mm.
So what do you have to say about confidence?
I mean, it's the difference maker. Um, you know that, but I mean, it's how you carry yourself. Confidence is something that for me felt very elusive for a long time because I didn't have it. I remember my mom telling me, like in high school, you need to have more confidence. I'm like, well, where do I get it? Like, can I just go buy some? Like, how I don't get if I'm not confident, where do I find it? And for me, it came from doing. You know, I used to think, especially again, going back to being so uncomfortable in sales at first, I used to think if I knew the perfect thing to say every time, I would be confident. And it's not true because even once I had my little elevator pitch, excuse me, I
Peach,
still wasn't
your
confident.
elevator peach.
Elevator peach. I still wasn't confident. And it wasn't because it just was because I hadn't done it enough. And that came with time. And I know that's not something people like to think, like want to hear sometimes, but it's true. Like you you have to do it even if you're not confident because confidence comes from learning what works for you and learning what feels right for you. And I will say the other thing that was really huge for me with confidence was actually physical. I trained for my before my 25th birthday. I decided to train for a 10K because I'd never run more than 3 miles. And I was like, well, if I can run 3, then I bet I could run 6. And I found this free program online and I just did it every single day. And over the course of that training, I noticed like when I would start my morning doing that, I was so proud of myself that it actually kind of weaseled its way into my work day because I started my day every day pushing myself a little bit further than I realized I could. And when you get in the habit of regularly doing that, it makes it easier to push yourself in other ways as well. And I don't
That's
mean
so
that you have to
funny.
run a 10K, but for me, that was huge.
That's so funny that you're saying that because I've actually just started running 3K in the mornings. And I'm not somebody who likes the gym or likes to work out, but just the reason why I started doing that is because something I'm really working on right now is, and I'm still working. I think people think I'm good at this, but I think like there's always more room for improvement. Like I'm really working on my own self-efficacy, like my own feeling of I'm able to effectively accomplish the things I set out to do. And that's as a positive psychology practitioner, like somebody who has studied this, I know that self-efficacy and exactly what you're talking about, that confidence in I can do this, is one of like the pillars of well-being in humanity. By the way, like in all human psychology, like self-efficacy, the feeling that you're able to accomplish and to do, like goes even way back to can the caveman feed himself? Like it literally is that hardwired into our brains into in terms of well-being. Like it's that hardwired, that we have to feel that we are autonomous and that we have self-efficacy in our lives. And in today's day and age, obviously, like nobody has to build their self-efficacy by proving that they can feed themselves. Most people, at least most people,
Mm.
are can just go to the grocery store to do that. But the other things that we maybe need to work on and have to build self-efficacy with are just as important and dictating a lot of things in our lives. And what I love about what you were saying is, and something I encourage people to do often, is take the imperfect action. Just start. You have to start somewhere, even if you didn't accomplish it on the first day or the second day or the third day, whatever you set out to do that day, or if you said you were going to do it that day but then did it for 4 days later, like it doesn't matter. Like especially in those very beginning phase, there has to be so much compassion because you are building a new skill. You're building self-efficacy, literally. Like you're literally building the skill of self-efficacy. So I think it's super important for anybody listening to this that's wondering, how do I build confidence, is to just start doing something. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's, if you're somebody who struggles with talking to people, well, then if you can't quite talk to people yet, record yourself
Yes.
talking to yourself on your phone, talking to yourself about anything, the flowers, the grass, the air, like whatever, it doesn't matter. But just like that starting somewhere is so important. And then there's also a different kind of person, which some people here may be watching and may be like this, is the kind of people that just like to jump right in, that just like to take the deep dive and go right in. And that's also something I super encourage people to do, is to just take the plunge, dive right in. If you're one of those people who can and like to do that to build better confidence, is to also just go for it. Where do you need to take the plunge in your life right now? And just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. What about mindset, in terms of like the mindset of confidence? Like, what do you have to say about what mindset should we have as we're building this self-efficacy,
So
especially with telling ourselves?
I think that the biggest thing, especially if you come from a background, I was actually talking about this with Sarah, the one who's running the Design to Thrive Leadership Summit. If you come from a background like I do, where you had one parent who was pretty relaxed and you have the other one who's a bit of a perfectionist. Like if I made a 98, my mom would ask me why I didn't make 100 and why I got it wrong, right? Like it wasn't good job. It was like, why weren't you perfect? And
Not 2%.
2% makes such a difference. And on the one hand, I love it because it instilled this desire to strive, right? I'm always working to be better. But what the mindset that I had to switch is I had to allow myself to be really bad. And I think sometimes if you come from that perfectionist background, you don't want to start because you know you're not going to be perfect at it. And here's the thing, you're not going to be perfect at it, you get perfect at it. And you can't get perfect if you're not if you're not willing to just be bad. And I am such a huge advocate for, like you said, imperfect action, be messy. And once I started allowing myself, like, okay, I'm gonna write this. I've had to write like leadership messages over the years for work. I would always let myself off the hook with saying, like, I'm just gonna write a really crappy first draft. And once I gave myself
Cool. Your
permission.
goal is to write a crappy first draft. Anybody can do that, right? Anybody can write a crappy first draft.
Yes, and when you allow that, then one, it's never as crappy as you think it's gonna be, but two, then it's a matter of, all right, I'm not trying to be perfect, I'm just trying to get something on the page, and then I can mold it into what it needs to be. And that's a very different, space to come from, as opposed to, well, if it's not perfect as soon as it comes out, then it's not good enough.
Yeah, and something I actually was talking about on my Instagram stories today was, and it's like probably one of like the most important messages, and I don't say that lightly. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Is, the power of consistency, because anybody can write a not so great essay 5 days a week, and then on the sixth day maybe write something that's really amazing because they were at their 100% and they were able to give them that 100%. But maybe on Monday you were at your 60%, and on Tuesday you were at your 30%, and there's like every day is a different day. You're not going to feel like giving it 100%, making it perfect every day, but every day you still did something at
Mhm.
wherever you were at. And that consistency, again, being able to stay consistent with anything, even if you're not at your 100%, is what starts to build that self efficacy and that mindset of I can do this, and that confidence that comes with it. So, yeah, super important to kind of remember to take that imperfect action. And what a great story that was that you just talked about. Your goal was to write a not so great essay. That was
Mhm.
it. That was your goal. Anybody can do that. And I love that because that's a great way to put it. It's like something that anybody can do. Start there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So such a great message. So Rosanna, this has been an amazing conversation. I am looking at my little notes that we did before we got on this call. And the last topic on here is about discipline. And I think it's a great segue to talk about discipline because we just had a little bit of a chat about consistency and mindset. The mindset piece has consistency parts in it, and that obviously entails some discipline. So I'm curious to hear, what do you have to say about discipline, because I know within sales, like, this is really really big, but also the way that that overlaps with my side of things is having the discipline to keep going, for my clients and for the people that I mentor, and the discipline to just show up for yourself, forget everything else, but for yourself, so you can accomplish and gain the career moves you want, is such a big piece of what I teach. So I'd love to hear from your side, which is a lot more intense, I think, in the sales department, what you have to say.
You show up every day. Half of it is showing up. But as far as discipline, you you have to be very protective of boundaries, which also means you have to set boundaries. And the example I'll give is when I was in sales, I was in outside sales. I didn't go into an office. I was on my own every single day. My boss didn't know whether I was out the door at 8 a.m. or 11 a.m. And that's a choice. And it was a lot of pressure at when I first started. I was 21. I was like a month shy of turning 22. But I'm so grateful for that because I learned really quickly that if you don't get your hiney out the door the same way you would if you had to clock in at an office, you're not going to have the success you want, because you're not going to get in the amount of people you need to see, the numbers, all that stuff. But I had to become disciplined. And for me, again, because my friends knew that I didn't have to go to an office, they would text me or they would go, "Oh, hey, what are you doing? Like, let's talk." And it's like, no, 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 no. Just because I'm not in an office doesn't mean I'm available. Just like when you're at work, you're not available because your boss is sitting right in front of you. I had to hold myself to those same standards. And that's what discipline is. It's defining standards and then maintaining them and holding yourself to them. And it ain't always easy. Sometimes it's going to be really hard, but that's why it's called discipline. And you build it, right? Like, I made mistakes. I would take calls from friends at first and then realize, oh, I'm not getting the results I want. But, I also sat there for an hour with my friend who was having a meltdown in the middle of the day. And it was like, oh, great, I'm a good friend, but I also was not a good employee. And I had to say, these are my boundaries, not going to break them. And I think, again, going back to doing that race that I did, the training, what was great about that was I got to build discipline over time. I didn't start out running 6 miles. I started out with a half mile, then a mile, then 1 point, like it slowly built up. And I think sometimes people, like when they're trying to do something new, or they're like, let's say you want to take a course and it's 6 hours long, this free iTunes course, and I don't know how long they are, but let's say it's 6 hours. If you leave it as in, I'm going to have to do all 6 hours at once, then guess what? You're probably going to keep procrastinating. But if you instead set it up as, okay, this day I'm going to finish at least one module, or this at least every day I'm going to do 15 to 20 minutes, whatever it is. But you have to make it a routine. You have to make it something that you do consistently. And then the more you do that, the easier it's going to be you're going to do that with everything.
It all goes back to, in my, like hearing you, I'm like, it all goes back to that self-efficacy. Like you have to learn how to become on your own and like trust yourself to become the person that you need to be to get the opportunities come into your life that match where you're at, because you're not going to get a super, amazing, high paying position if you don't first have the discipline to just first start to work on yourself, to like build the skill acquisition and consistency in the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, to eventually get to the point where somebody that is that high up in or works in a very meaningful place, or is running a business that just like means the world to them, or in your case, like you're selling something to that is super, super important for them to, whatever you're selling to them needs to turn into results. You need to become that person that is going to be able to deliver that first. So that discipline is such a huge factor in that, because it really does take you deciding with your boundaries. And I think boundaries are definitely the key thing here when it comes to discipline. Boundaries are key to successful discipline. Really.
One thing I hear a lot of, especially like women with food and working out, where, and I have so many friends who will do this and they'll just say, I'm just not disciplined. It is what it is. Oh, I can't do this. And it's like, well, you can't do it because you've already decided it. And you haven't tried to take little actions day in and day out. Discipline isn't something that anybody is just naturally born with. You get good at it. So if you just think that you're just not disciplined at working out, then where's the incentive for you to at least try moving for do a YouTube dance video? Newsflash, that's working out. Like, I hate when people let themselves off the hook that easily. And it's like, nobody is just born one day like, I am the most disciplined. Like, again, and I can't say it enough, you have to practice it. And you have to make the effort every single day.
What do you say to people who maybe are like, I'm just like, especially I think with this pandemic, this is so valid to kind of point out, is like, there's definitely going to be people that are like, I'm just not in the mood to make that effort today. Do you have anything to say? Or maybe they just haven't been in the mood to make any effort for 6 months. Like, what do you have to say to people who maybe have been in that situation long term?
So, you know what? I've had like ebbs and flows. Well, I haven't had ebbs and flows with how much I work out. I'm always really consistent, but I've had ebbs and flows in the types of workouts I do. And I always bring it back to working out because that's something that for me at this point, it's like washing my hair. It's just something I do. But what I did learn or see in the pandemic is you have to you have to be very self-aware. And for me, I started noticing that like I really loved my high intensity workouts for a period. And then when I started noticing that like I was starting my workouts later and later in the morning, like I kept procrastinating, instead of making myself still do that workout, I started doing dancing YouTube videos because that didn't feel like it was hard to do. And then I do one, then I do two, then I three. And then before I know it, I've danced for 30 minutes.
I played Just Dance on the Wii. I played Just Dance on the Wii.
I've never done that.
No, not on the Wii, sorry, on the Nintendo Switch with my cousin. Yeah, like
it's movement. And I think it's so like they get so narrow-minded about what it has to look like. Or it's like, well, I saw this person doing this hardcore workout and I can't ever do that. So I'm not going to. Well, again, don't let yourself off the hook. Find something that you do want to do. And I'm going to tell you, if you're sitting at home in a pandemic, it's not even about doing it to lose weight. It's about your own sanity. Movement is good for releasing endorphins. If you are in a horrible, horrible mental space, you need to move your body for your own mental sanity. And
Even if you don't want to, you have to. Yeah.
and like this isn't, again, this isn't you have to do some crazy workout, but just move, walk up and down
You
your steps.
deserve to move. You deserve to show up for yourself by just taking a 10-minute, 15-minute walk today, or dancing in front of the TV to a YouTube video. Yeah, I feel I was there in the beginning of this pandemic. I was in the UK. It's one of the, in my opinion, worst places to be right now, because the UK has been in lockdowns on and off for like almost a whole year now. And I was in that position where I was like, I just didn't go anywhere. I didn't work out. I didn't do anything. I remember I gained like 12 pounds, and I was thinking like, I cannot get myself out of this. And I only started to work out again once I was out back with my family, and my visa had expired. I moved back to Miami. I was able to, because I was feeling better and happier, I was able to move. But I know that looking back at that time, what I would have done differently for myself looking back then is tell myself and remind myself that I have to, for my own health today, and that like I deserve to be taken care of by just moving a little bit. It's like you don't have to even do it for yourself right now, because that's totally valid. That is a real sentiment that is going around right now, is like, I just can't get myself to do it. It's like, don't do it for yourself. Be disciplined because you deserve it, because your body deserves it today. So I think that can be, a more compassionate approach to building discipline sometimes when you're just really not feeling it. It's so much easier to build discipline when like you have even just 10% motivation to do it, you know? So yeah, this has been a great chat. Is there anything you want to add before we go? Do you want to talk about your website, your programs, anything that you want to contribute at the end, or any last words that you think may be important to share?
Oof. Well, before I get into last words, I do want to say, so anybody's welcome to go to my blog, rosannagill.com. And also I have a podcast called Breaking Labels, which I would love for people to listen to. It is not necessarily just a business podcast. I interview people from all kinds of backgrounds. And I just want to have really interest. It's me leaning into my curiosity, but getting to learn about people from all kinds of backgrounds, because you can learn from anyone. Don't get so hung up on whether or not they look like you or come from a similar background, because you're going to be surprised always at things that you have in common with people. 12 years of outside sales definitely taught me that. But as far as final words, I mean, one, thank you for this because I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And two,
Me too.
I hope that, people really allow themselves to get coaching. Like, I love what you're doing, and I told you this before. I love what you're doing because I feel like if I'd had somebody in my corner cheering me on, just broadening my awareness of what's available out there or what I could ask for or hope for in an employer, it would have, I mean, it would have put me light years ahead of where I am now. And I'm not regretting where I am, but I will say 12, 13 years in my professional career, I am so like such a huge advocate for coaching. I can't encourage people enough to reach out to you and just to lean into, you do not have to know this all yourself. Get help. You are not in this alone. Seek help.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think for me, like, I'm pretty biased. I've been in the coaching world since I was 16, but I always tell people I would be a fraction, if even, of a person I am today if it weren't for it. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of stigma around like coaching and life coaches, but like there really are really amazing people like you, and like so many of the ladies that are going to be in the summit doing amazing work using their expertise and just really changing people's lives. You know, in so many ways through their coaching.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for being here today. I've learned so much from you. This was amazing. I did not expect to learn so much and hear so many amazing, things that resonated so much with me, and I'm sure are going to resonate with so many other people. And I'm really excited to see your talk. That too.
To hear yours. Oh, it's gonna be so
Yes,
exciting.
super exciting. Okay, well, without further ado, we will invite you to the summit. Anybody who's watching, you are allowed to register. The link is in my bio. I'm sure Rosanna has it on her side of things, on her page, and you can find the link on her pages, wherever you want us to find you. Do you want us to find you in a certain place besides your podcast?
RosannaGill.com. Best way to find me.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a great opportunity for anybody watching this. It is free to register, and if you, again, like if you want to upgrade to the VIP, I really recommend it. There are so many amazing things you can check out in the registration link, and it's totally worth it. It's like $47 for all those amazing resources, and you get to keep the talks and interviews for life, which
I,
are invaluable because there's so many amazing experts talking about so many things that you're going to want to replay for sure. So yeah, thank you so much, Rosanna, for everything. It was a pleasure talking with you today, and we can stop recording now.
oh.